There are a lot of things that Harry Potter book readers hate about the movies. From the lack of personality they give to Ginny, or that Harry just watches Dumbledore die, or the lack of any of the memories in the Half-Blood Prince. And us book readers love to sit and complain about these for hours. It's cathartic and kind of fun. But even though that may be true, there are some great additions that the movies made that are totally absent from the books. Today I want to count down what I think are 10 of the best book to movie additions. Number 10, Filch. I hate Filch. I think he is creepy and gross, but his character difference in the book versus the movie is pretty remarkable. In the books, he's very much seen as a grump. But in the movies, and particularly in movie 4, they made Filch an incredible, accidental comedian. I mean, what is this run? I don't know, but it's comedic gold. And I adore that he keeps firing the cannon prematurely and Dumbledore ends up just getting pissed at him. And in reply, Filch just shrugs his shoulders. In the books, Filch is dark and has no comedic side. His obsession with punishing students, often in cruel, archaic ways, makes him rather sad and almost pitiable. For a weirdly dark character, the movies actually made me really love Filch. Number 9, Dumbledore and Voldemort's duel. The movies actually did it justice, to be honest. Now, I am usually the kind of person that will say the books do it better, but this movie scene shocked me for how intense these two seem. The only real difference was that in the books, it was more apparent that Dumbledore was fighting with a hand tied behind his back, because he had so many other things he was doing, like keeping Harry at bay and safe. But this duel really does a great job of showing how Voldemort and Dumbledore are just head and shoulders better than all the other wizards in this world. Their duel is creative and engaging, and I cannot get enough of Ralph Fiennes' look of exasperation at the end because he is just annoyed that Dumbledore seems to be matching him. It's a fantastic adaptation and even a fantastic add-on from the books. Number 8. The way that Harry produces a Patronus in movie 3 is actually so good. And the movie version is that good that it's become in my head what the book actually has. But it's not. In the books, it's much less significant. In the lesson that he has with Lupin on creating a Patronus, the memory that he uses in order to try to cast a Patronus are the first time he uses a broom, he fails. The prior year when Gryffindor had won the House Cup, he fails. And then the third memory he picks is the time he learns he will be leaving the Dursleys for Hogwarts. It's honestly very good writing because Harry is a young kid at this point and probably wouldn't, go to the side of sentimental. But the movies do it significantly better. In the scene where Harry fails, Lupin lambasts Harry and says that the memory of him first riding a broom isn't close to being good enough. This feels like such an important line because it shows the difference between fleeting happiness and hopeful, lasting happiness. The kind of happiness that sticks around. So when Harry is able to conjure the Patronus, Lupin is thrilled and tells Harry he'd give his father a run for his money. Harry then tells him that he was thinking of him, both his parents, and they were just talking to him. He didn't even know if it was real, but it was such a good addition for the movies. It makes the Patronus in that moment feel like it has more weight to it, like it's connected to his family in some way. And that is beautiful. Number 7, the Death of Dumbledore. Stay with me here, because this is a controversial one, I know. And I agree that the magic just doesn't really work here, but the symbolism and emotion of this scene just does it for me in the movies. There's so many issues I have with everything else around this, like the way that Dumbledore dies, how Harry just kind of just sits there and watches. There's so many issues. But when Dumbledore dies and Harry comes back after being owned by Snape, there's just a sad moment when the whole school just puts up their wands in the air. It's as if they are rebelling that something so grotesque is tarnishing something so pure and holy, like the resting place of Dumbledore. And it's just an emotional scene, where Madame Pomfrey puts her wand up in absolute tears, makes me well up every single time. And I think the symbolism here is just on point. It's all about being together and being united, because now they have to take this thing out together, because the only wizard that Voldemort ever feared is now dead. Say what you will against this scene, but I kind of love it. Number 6, Harry's ultimate snapback against Umbridge. If there is one thing that I hate about the books, it's the long time that we had to spend with Umbridge. I remember reading it for the first time, and shameless plug, if you want to experience reading it for the first time again, check out our podcast, Harry Potter and the First Time Readers, on this channel. But the first time I read Order of the Phoenix, I was in agony for the length of time that Umbridge was not gone. It was awful. She made her appearance and I was counting the pages till she was gone, and to be honest, her end didn't feel nearly as satisfying in the books. I was cautious in the book if she was going to pop out again at the end and be the headmaster or something. But in the movies, we have this all-time line. I'm sorry, Professor, but I must not tell lies. Yes, Harry, that's so good. And when he does it again in Deathly Hallows Part 1, it's just brilliant and makes me feel so good when he snaps back at the most annoying character in this whole series. Number 5, Voldemort's robes fading in the Horcrux hunt. This is one I never really knew up until a few months ago, and it was confirmed by the costume designer. But his robes are supposed to be 7 shades of green to represent each Horcrux. And for each Horcrux that gets destroyed, his outfit fades ever so slightly. It's a fantastic thing and pretty impossible to find on a watch, but it's one of those things that might be so intuitive that it makes me love the films and how they really did pay attention to some details like that. Number 4, that's my boy. Oh, if there is one scene in the movies that never fails to make me well up with tears, it's Amos Diggory screaming, "That's my son, my boy." His acting in this scene is unreal. It's beautiful. And it's a welcome change in the books, because all we have in the books is that Harry went and met with them after the tournament, and Amos Diggory was just very quiet during their meeting. He didn't really speak, but he showed a minor appreciation to Harry for bringing back his son's body. But the movie had this unreal performance where Amos seems much prouder of a father than the books have him. He cries over his son's dead body with a grief that is so believable for the film. In a pretty disappointing adaptation of Goblet of Fire, I think that this single moment elevates this movie for me to a point that I both dread and look forward to this moment every single time I watch this film. Number 3, Hedwig's death. Significantly better in the movies. Well, let me take that back a little bit. Maybe not significantly, because in the books it's very symbolic how she dies, but Hedwig's death in the movies is just way more courageous and noble, and it makes it more enjoyable to watch. Maybe that's weird for me to say, the death of a character makes something more enjoyable to watch, but in the movies she dies nobly trying to keep Harry alive. It's cool too, because this is how the Death Eaters know that this is the real Harry, because Hedwig's loyalty. And as a pet owner myself, I love this. That your pet is so loyal to you that that's what distinguishes you from all the other fake yous out there. In the book, Hedwig is in a cage between Harry's legs, shoved into the bottom of the sidecar of the motorcycle. She dies when a killing curse narrowly misses Harry and hits her. Harry is devastated, but then it's later confirmed that she is for sure dead when she falls out of the cage like a limp and lifeless creature down to the earth below. It's devastating for how she dies, but it's symbolic in that she dies in the way that Harry had left. He was in a cage for most of his life. And Hedwig's death has some symbolism for how Harry is not free. But it's just so much better in the movies, to be honest. The idea that she sacrifices her life willingly and is trying to protect Harry is just so good and so brilliant. Number 2, Harry breaking the Elder Wand. I think it's a good addition, but I'm kind of on the fence about this one. The reason being, in the books, Harry doesn't break the Elder Wand. He mends his own wand with it, which is absolutely a scene that you need in the movies if Harry breaks it before he mends his own wand. That drives me crazy about this scene. But in the books, he mends his own wand and then has a conversation with Portrait Dumbledore about putting it back in Dumbledore's grave. Dumbledore thinks it's a good idea, and so that's what they do. And they're both assuming that on Harry's death that the Elder Wand will just lose all power. Good reasoning, Except I love this idea in the books for one reason. The possibility that the Elder Wand still has a master. So you are telling me that in all the years that Harry is an Auror, not one single person disarmed him, and that the Elder Wand's allegiance didn't change in that moment. Or you're also telling me that Ginny didn't disarm Harry in a cute flirting way and she's now the owner of the Elder Wand. I love this in the books because there's other stories to tell with it. But I love it more in the movies because it just gives closure and feels final. And to be honest, is probably what book Harry would have really done. This weirdly feels more right to the character of Harry than him not snapping the wand. And I'll stick by that. Number 1. The greatest change to the entire franchise, at least my favorite, is Francis the Fish. It's the little story that Slughorn tells Harry when Harry is high on Felix Felicis, which is another great scene for the books to movies, by the way. But this is the story. I once had a fish, Francis. He was very dear. One day I came downstairs. Vanished. Poof. But that's life, I suppose. You go along and suddenly, poof. Then he gets serious. 'Twas a student who gave me Francis. One spring afternoon I discovered a bowl on my desk. Just a few inches of clear water in it. Floating on the surface was a flower petal. As I watched, it sank. Just before it reached the bottom, it was transformed into a wee fish. It was beautiful magic, wondrous to behold. The flower petal had come from a lily. Your mother. The day I came downstairs, the day the bowl was empty, was the day your mother. This had so much incredible depth to the character of Lilian Slughorn. Because book Slughorn is a bit greasier than the movie portrayal. He seems to want students to collect more than he does in the movies. And the story that he tells shows how he was adored by certain students, Lily Evans being one of them. And it also adds incredible depth to the character of Lily, with giving a teacher a beautiful gift like that and being able to do incredible magic like that. And I think this story is single-handedly the greatest book-to-movie change in the entire series. And it never ceases to impress me every single time that I watch it. So there you have it. 10 of the best book-to-movie changes in the Harry Potter films. Let me know what other ones you think are great and leave a like on the video if you enjoyed this, and make sure you subscribe for more Harry Potter nerdy content.